What is the most severe case of someone being completely out of touch with reality you ever seen? My friend stole my card information and bought loads of expensive stuff. I asked her if it was her before reporting it, knowing that she was going through a tough time and I wanted to give her a chance to make it right and that I would be in trouble for conspiracy to fraud if I reported it and they believed I got stuff delivered to my friends to claim fraud for money back. She said no. I thought someone else has done it, so I reported it. When she got arrested, she said she didn't think they'll take the fraud thing so far. She thought you could just call up banks to get the money back and they wouldn't investigate. I would never forget the man who angrily told me, a wheelchair user with no feet and no prosthetics, to go down the stairs if I didn't want to wait for the elevator. Parents of a 35-year-old woman who was hospitalized after suffering several atonic brain damage 20 years ago. She had been in the same ward since barely conscious. They refused to get her transferred to a more suitable facility for 20 years, saying that there's no reason to do so. Those facilities are for lost causes, and their daughter is going to make a full recovery, finish school, get married, and be totally fine. Working in hospitals got me quite a collection of these stories, but this one I thought was one of the saddest ones. In college, I had a roommate from the most sheltered part of Long Island. We met an exchange student from Switzerland, and I swear to God, she said this in the complete seriousness. "Oh wow, I didn't know people actually lived in Switzerland. I thought they just weren't banks there." My cousin was spoiled and sheltered her entire childhood through college. Then her parents stupidly cut the leash without any preparation and released her into society. She quickly got in trouble for bouncing checks all over town. My mom picked her up and asked her why the heck she was writing bad checks everywhere. Turns out my cousin was under the impression that as long as you had checks in your checkbook, you had money in your account. She didn't understand that you deposit in a number and they can spend or withdraw up to that amount. Please teach your kids basic finances. This was 1996 when checks were all the rage. My sister grew up with everything handed to her, literally cried when her first car wasn't the color she wanted, married rich. Can't fathom why I can't take off work whenever it suits me and says stuff like, I can't ask my boss for a week off. I would tell him I'm taking the week off. Work with a girl who is a flat earther and on top of that denies the existence of space. When the topic came up and I disagreed, she asked if I ever been there. Obviously, I haven't. I told her I had also never been to Japan, and that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. She complained to management about my intolerance of her beliefs. My old boss at the time was a girl of 26 who got $4 million from her mom every year to play with. Her mom is very wealthy in China. Her daughter's here trying to be the CEO of a company for fuzzies. I accidentally got a job at that company. One day she told us we were all going on a group outing for bonding. She took us to an outlet mall 4 hours away. She told the rest of us, 7 people, that she was going to go shop and she'll see us later. That was code for don't follow me freakers. Every 2 hours, she'll let us know she was going to go unload her bags to the giant van they rented and would group text us telling us we can meet her there to unload as well. We all got paid under $50K. We had nothing to unload. By lunch, she had proceeded to fill up the van with crap. She then asked me where all my new stuff is, and I said I'm budgeting right now. She goes, take out a credit card and go shop. That's the American way. Seriously? Okay. By 9 p.m., her bags were taken up people's seat and they had to sit with her stuff. She spent $30K. The rest of us spent around $70. We were tired, bored, and cold. To this day, I still believe she thinks she did something nice for us and doesn't understand how polarizing and not at all team bonding that was. Had a friend who insisted she was in a relationship with a C-list celebrity whom she met once during a comic conversation. All the celebrity's Instagram and Twitter posts were for her and everything had a meaning behind it. When the celebrity got married, she said that it was just for the media so she and the celebrity could live a quiet life. When he didn't do anything for her birthday, she had a breakdown. She went to therapy not long after. My sister-in-law was kicked out by her boyfriend, comes to stay with us for a few days. We suggest looking for a flat or a cheap house to rent near us. She won't live in the scummy part of town near us. She likes a 3-bed house with a garden in the best part of town. She has no savings and isn't sure if she has a job. She was a part-time cashier in a supermarket, stopped going to work when COVID came. No, not furloughed. The supermarket was still open, she's just not going in. When I suggested maybe she can't afford $500K on a family home on her salary, she suggested she'll just get a council house, disregarding the huge waiting line and the fact that most council properties are in the ghetto part of town. This is just a crust of deep layer of the unhinged fantasy world she lives in. I used to work at a software company in downtown Boston. One of the best perks of the job at the time was the flexibility in hours. Many folks had regular WFH days. Myself, I knew I could drop my kids off at school, get into the office by 9:30 and my boss had no issue with it whatsoever. Others with kids had similar. arrive late, or leave early schedules depending on their childcare. After a few years, a new CEO comes in, spends a month observing how the office works, then calls for a company-wide meeting. During the meeting, she tells everyone she believes having a full office 8 to 5 is the most productive environment, and at the start of the next month, all WFH was cancelled, and she wanted everyone in the office during those set hours, no showing up late or leaving early. A lively debate ensued, with discussions of there being very little warning, to pleas of flexibility, to concerns of making necessary childcare arrangements, especially given that in many cases we couldn't adjust those times. Plus, commuting to Boston sucks. After listening to all of these arguments, she finally responds with a long speech of appreciating the sacrifices everyone has to make to better the company. Everyone doing their part. Blah blah blah. She ends it by saying, "I understand where you're all coming from. Years ago, when my kids were little, my husband and I had to hire 3 nannies to cover all of the times we had to work. I remember we looked around at each other, speechless. It was also the moment I realized I would have to start looking for another job. When the millionaire CEO thinks hiring 3 nannies is a relatable example to her middle-class employees, it's pretty clear she's not going to change her mind." I worked on shifts with a guy for years who thought every single person was out to get him. I've never met anyone who had such a warped sense of reality. He would joke on with someone, then go away for the weekend and stew on this one particular thing, then come in on Monday absolutely raging over taking something the completely wrong way. I've seen him attack 2 people and heard about a 3rd. Thing is, he's so dopey, everyone thinks he's harmless, and that's just the way he is. A guy I trained as an apprentice had just started on shifts with him. Doesn't take anyone being a dick well at all. I think they're doing well together. Haha. I went to a private international school in London as a teenager. Most kids there had parents working good jobs, but in between them were some filthy rich kids with parents in the oil industry or something similar. In 8th grade, we were talking about our Easter break, and my friend from Belgium, who was talking about how his family had decided last minute to go there over the break, but had decided to drive there because there was no flights available. Then the Russian billionaire classmate of mine asked him, "Why didn't you take a private jet?" She was so clueless when we all started laughing. A woman I knew a few years ago, she had a job. She was convinced she was supposed to be a movie star. She never did any acting though. She also told me about the married man she had slept with. He loves me, but he can't leave his wife. She actually did stop having sex with him, but they still hung out. I knew someone who unironically tried to convince that not only is Pokemon demonic, but they exist in real life and there are reported cases of them attacking and harming people. I next became really religious, and I still talk to her sometimes. Somehow the topic of flat earth theories came up and she said she thinks it's actually possible that it could be true. I tried to explain that we had more than enough images and data indicating that the earth is round, and she said could all be planted there by Satan. You just can't come up with a response to that. My friend suffered a psychotic break when we were teenagers. He'd been smoking weed constantly for a couple weeks, not eating or sleeping, and I think he had some underlying mental issues anyways, but that routine just sent him over the edge. Before his parents had admitted to the hospital, he came and met us before we were going out to a gig. He was wearing a pink silk pajama shirt and jogging bottoms and just looked very unwell. He was rambling on about the discoveries he was making and that he was going to meet some scientists in America. Then he laid on the pavement in the middle of the street and told us we all had to lie down to conserve the Earth's energy. That was about 15 years ago. He runs a successful business now. I was a stable hand of a very upper tier barn in a wealthy part of the country. The staff had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to protect clients. On one particular scorching July day, I overheard a client venting to another about how she was incredibly stressed and going to have a mental breakdown because her first choice catering company was all booked up for the weekend on her last minute yacht party. I'm paycheck to paycheck and had probably a total of 3 days off since Christmas. I would love for a yacht party to be my basis of a mental breakdown. Needless to say, the staff had a healthy chuckle on that one. A streamer that I watched a couple times before his behavior drove me to stop. It was a shame because when he was actually gaming, I liked the content, but his attitude drove you up the wall. But the out of touch reality part is that he talked about his girlfriend on stream a few times. Nothing wrong with that, except his girlfriend was a female streamer who lived in Europe. He was from the States and he had never actually met her in his life. She got wind of this through shared views and debunked the story on her stream, saying she's never even interacted with him. This caused them to go nuts and start stalking the girl wherever he could, causing her to eventually stop streaming and delete all her social media. After his Twitch account was banned for this, he eventually managed to convince Twitch to unban him, and then he did the same thing to a different girl. Now he's permanently banned from Twitch. As a result of this, he keeps raging about it on Twitter. Just to clarify, I don't follow this guy, but someone posts about him on the game subreddits every now and then, which is why I know the story. Some people are just bananas. So I grew up with a lot of restrictions that at the moment had no idea the other options exist. For example, I was only allowed 2 options of shoes, but the catch was that I needed to make the right choice, or that I can make friends on my own, not needing to be told this is your new friend now, so go play with them. Sadly, my dad kept me in a small box and he was the only one allowed to control what would go into that box or come out. So when I was 10, CPS was involved and I was taken into foster care. That's when my world exploded. I don't know truly how bad it was until they took me to a shoe store and told me to pick out ones I liked. I swear for the life of me I had no clue what to do. I stood there for what felt like hours until they noticed and asked what my favorite color was. I said green because that was what my father told me I liked. But I guess I was too overwhelmed that I kept remembering saying yes to everything and ended up with ugly brown and pink sneakers. What children learn to do at their normal age is what I am just figuring out in my 20s. So the reality was a hard thing to live because the whole time I was in my dream world. My father was a habitual liar. I somehow think he believes his own lies. Over the past couple years, I've noticed he doesn't actually have anything new to say, sort of regurgitates sentences in slightly different ways. It causes his business to fail. He lied to everyone that was employed there, saying he had liquidated the company, going so far as to tell people he met with lawyers and the process had been started. I did some digging and found out there were no lawyers or liquidation. He just tried to duck the system. I have no contact with him, but my brother says he's still trying to use the same tactics. I just feel he believes everything, sort of living in his own head. Very sad that he damaged lives in the process. My stepfather's grandpa suffered from psychosis in a strange way. He wasn't able to distinguish mere reflections from real life. He would often be found talking to his reflections for hours. Later on, he wasn't allowed to have any mirrors because he would believe that that man was there to kill him, and often would turn violent as he would start punching and clawing against the mirrors. A friend of my mom's was a school counselor at an international school in Indonesia. They were organizing a school trip for the 13-year-olds, top dollar school, so top dollar trip at a fancy hotel. One of the parents comes in and asks her about the toilet situation. She replies saying each room has an en-suite so the kids would be fine. The mother then replies, "But who will wipe his bottom?" Turns out this kid had a maid who slept at the end of his bed at night and would wipe his privileged butt for him. My parents were both in a very bad car accident about 4 years ago. Luckily, my mom was able to make a full recovery. My father, on the other hand, got a severe injury to the brain as well and is subacute, being taken care of. As much as I don't want to be true, I don't think he's ever going to come back. My mom every day since says he's going to be back with us and we're all going to be happy. I miss you, Dad. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to leave a like and a subscription, if you haven't already. Uploads are coming daily, so don't forget to hit the notification bell if you want to be kept in the loop.